Larry Krueger with you, and joining us this segment on the UMA guest line, one of our favorites, Todd Husak. You hear him on the pre- and post-game shows on KMBR. You're going to hear more of him in 2026 on the 49er pre- and post-game. And he's with us on the UMA guest line to talk a little bit about the Combine and the offseason and everything that's going on in Niner news. What's up, Todd? How are you?
I'm doing great. There's no offseason anymore, Larry.
I know.
It is 12 months a year.
Who are we fooling?
365, 24/7. It's amazing how they manage to fill every day with content, even sometimes when it's a non-story.
Exactly. Whether it's a story or not. You know, one of the stories, though, that I really do believe is a story, because I had somebody from the Niners come up to me and say to me towards the end of the year, hey, you know what? There's a good chance a couple of these guys are not here next year, and it'll be guys that you would surprise you. And I'm like, really? Who's that? And they're like, how about Renardo Green? How about Ricky Pearsall? Now, I'm not saying that those guys are for sure getting dealt, but that's what I was told at the end of the year by people who are kind of in the know. ESPN today says Renardo Green has an 80% chance of being traded this offseason. He's got 2 more years on his deal at $3.004 million. He's still only 25. The Niners have a new defensive coordinator in Raheem Morris. You know, we'll see if this is their guy or not, but I'd heard that Renardo might be on the move, and ESPN makes it sound like it's likely that he's on the move. Well, what would be your reaction if you know, they're saying that the Cowboys, Falcons, and Eagles are the teams that have a lot of interest in Renardo?
I get that. You know, I think he showed flashes. He's one of the young guys that I was pretty excited about. I think he has ability and strength out of the corner position. He tackles well. He's kind of a big body. But there seemed to be a little bit of a falling out last year where there were some incidents maybe late in the season and he wasn't playing as much. He's been injured a little bit. I think he holds a lot of value for another team where he's experienced, he's still young, and he's still on that rookie number where he can come in and start for a number of other teams in the NFL. And I think he still has some upside to get better. So that makes sense. As we look at the Niners roster, there's some pretty big holes that they need to fill with players that, not just guys that can come in and compete, but guys that are starters day one. And so if you can get a piece for him in return, I like that. Pearsall would be interesting because that's such a thin position right now for the 49ers. They need to be adding wide receivers, not dealing with them or dealing them. But I do think he's been a frustrating player from the standpoint of when he plays and he's healthy, he shows he can separate and make tough catches in traffic and be that one guy in the 49ers the last couple of years who can really stretch the field, but man, he hasn't played half the games. So that makes it tough. And then there's been a handful of games where he doesn't get any targets, and that was more his rookie season. But I'd love to see him become a better player. Yeah, those are 2 young guys on rookie contracts that I think have a lot of promise in their NFL career, but the 49ers have to weigh everything. They have to weigh the entire roster. And when you can get starters at other positions, I think everybody has to be in play, except for maybe a handful of guys.
Yeah. No, I mean, these are good players, by the way. I think both these guys have proven they can play in the league. You know, there's always we drafted the wrong guy. He can't play. We're trading him. You know, the A.J. Jenkins story or whatever you want to call it, you know. Yeah. And there's lots of examples of that around the league because there's, you know, you hit and miss all the time in the draft and you see those kinds of trades. Hey, you know what? We missed badly on this guy and now we're just kind of parting ways. I don't think that's the case. I just think that they don't. Maybe these guys aren't great fits. Personality wise, who knows? But I mean, I can't even begin to guess. How they fit or don't fit in the overall scheme. But there's no debate in our minds of can Renardo Green play corner in the NFL? Yeah, he can. Can Ricky Pearsall play receiver in the NFL? Yeah, he can. The Pearsall story is kind of the old. You can't make the club in the tub. You know what I mean? It's like it's one of those things where you got to be at some point. You got to be healthy. I don't think they're going to move him from the standpoint of what you just said. Right? They're looking for receivers. They have very little continuity at this position. Oh, but wait. Yesterday, John Lynch at the Combine was asked about this position, and he said, we may be interested in a former player bringing him back, and that was unsolicited. And I think we all know that player is Debo Samuel. So what do you think about the Niners doing a second dance with Deebo at age 30. I looked into his Commanders numbers. They were pretty good. I mean, he had 5 touchdowns. It wasn't like he, fell off the floorboards production wise. He produced, he had probably one of his, 2 or 3 most productive years of his career, believe it or not, in Washington. How do you, I mean, I just out of hand was just like, no. You and I went through this a couple weeks ago. I'm like, I wouldn't have that kind of soft, like, hey, let's bring him back, and old time's sake and that kind of thing. But this is Kyle Shanahan's football team. And then let's make no mistake about that. And Kyle gets what he wants. He's the head coach. And if he wants Deebo, he's going to get Deebo. If he wanted Raheem Morris, he's going to get Raheem Morris. The head coach gets what he wants. It's the NFL.
I think that move would be more for a culture standpoint. Like, we need to be tougher at that position. We need to block better. And he'll still produce, but Larry, you and I talked about it the second half of the season and most of this offseason. They need to get faster. And Deebo is not upgrading them from a speed standpoint at that position. I mean, again, we talked about frustrating players. Jacob Cowing and Jordan Watkins, like, those guys are fast. And they just haven't been on the field at all. So I'd almost rather bring back a different fit body. Like, is Deebo going to be the second best wide receiver? I don't think if he's your best wide receiver, you're in trouble in the passing game. Can he be your second best? Maybe. I think in my opinion, he's best at like wide receiver 3, and maybe he blocks a little bit, and Kyle Shanahan uses him creatively where he can add some value. I just don't see him winning a ton of matchups on the perimeter, and that's where they need help. Like, they have some interior blockers, and so I think bringing him back would be, we need to get tougher. We need some leadership. We need wide receivers to start stepping up more consistently. So maybe he's more of a mentor for those young guys that I mentioned that just can't seem to get on the field. And perhaps that's something they've lacked in the locker room over the last couple of years, and he would help there. I just don't see him being – I look at the Rams and the Seahawks as kind of the benchmark for where they need to be offensively. And the Rams' second best wide receiver is Devontae Adams, and the Seahawks' second best wide receiver is Cooper Kupp. And both of their number ones are awesome, like top 5 receivers in the NFL. So I see some positives to it, but I don't think bringing him back and expecting a bunch of production is realistic at this point in his career.
The one thing you can say about Deebo, he's never a redundant part because he's kind of a one of one, right? I mean, he's very much his own guy. And if you like that piece, it's a hard piece to replicate. It's not like you can, just go get this guy, go get that guy. They're all like, no, this guy's kind of unique body type and stylistically. I think you did hit on it though. Might be more of a culture thing. Like, hey, you know what? We need to be tougher. We need to be able to block on the edges. I need a guy who can block. The interesting thing is there's so much the wide receiver core is in such a state of flux. And the only guys that you really have under contract are the young, fragile, speedy guys that you don't really believe in. So he's not gonna be, he's not gonna replicate what they do. Right. So he's not gonna be redundant if those are the other guys. But I look at it this way: you can have one slow receiver that you like, that's a continuity piece, that's a chain mover. And, if that guy is Dwight Clark, then that guy's Dwight Clark for Bill Walsh. You know what I mean? Or if that guy's, Anquan Bolden at the end, then that's Anquan Bolden for Jim Harbaugh. Or if that's, in this case, if it's Deebo, you can have one. If I was Lynch, I think I'd say, look, you got Bourne, you got JJ, and you got Deebo, and you can have one of those guys. Which one do you want? And, it might be which one's the cheapest and which one, and maybe Deebo after 1 year away from the Niners realized, hey, you know what? Kyle Shanahan, was great to work for, great to play for. That was an organization, a lot of times guys don't miss it until they're away from it. And then they realize, you know what? I had it going pretty good there.
Yeah. And I think that you've seen that with the 49ers, a number of not just players, coaches coming back to work with Shanahan. I think they do have a great culture that fosters. You look at all the coaches that have gone elsewhere and quarterbacks that have gone elsewhere and players that have signed big contracts because of their production here in San Francisco. They do have a great culture of developing young players and young talent, both on the staff and on the field. And I think it's a great sign that players want to come back. I just look at it from I do think Deebo could fill a need. I just think they need a guy that's going to get 80 catches and 1,200 yards. And Deebo is not going to be that guy. And so if they add some other pieces, would he make Pearsall better? Maybe. Could he help mentor some of those young guys that have potential and speed? Maybe. I still think they need a piece where Brock Purdy has a safety net whenever he needs it and can throw it to somebody who can win on the outside, who can make tough catches in traffic, and can stay healthy.
Today's video is sponsored by Brunt Workwear, and let me tell you, I was blown away when I pulled these boots out of the box. I've got the Omen Soft Toe in black right here. I love these boots. I've been wearing them for a few days. They're comfortable, no painful break-in, no sore feet, just tough, durable boots that feel great right away. The story behind Brunt is awesome, too. Their founder, Eric Gerard, grew up blue-collar. His friends in the trades told him that the big brands had sold out and stopped listening, so he built Brunt to make gear for real hardworking people. That's why every product is named after the guys he grew up with. The boots are made by and for the trades. Now, whether you need waterproof, safety toe, soft toe, pull on, lace up, Brunt has options that can handle whatever job site you're walking into. And the best part, if they're not right for you, you can wear them and still send them back. That's how much Brunt believes in their product. Right now, for a limited time, you can get $10 off Brunt when you use the code Larry at checkout. Just head to bruntworkwear.com/Larry. Enter the code Larry and you're good to go. After you order, they'll ask you where you heard about Brunt. Do us a favor. Tell them it was from the Krug Show. So don't settle for uncomfortable boots that don't hold up. Brunt built something better. Insanely comfortable, durable work boots for real work. You know, there's been rumors about Mike Evans. I will say this. If Mike Evans is your target and you're looking for somebody who doesn't do what Mike Evans does, that you trust, that you could get on the cheap, that should be Deebo. Now, the last part is the key part. Can you get him on the cheap? Does he have such a huge ego that he needs to make $12 million? Because if that's the case, forget it. But if you can come in at a cost-effective number that, is really palatable for us, if you're looking at it from the Niner perspective, I think that's what I'd be interested in. I'm not a big sentimental guy when it comes to personnel, but as I said, you can have one slow receiver that you love, and if Kyle's guy's Deebo, then so be it. One of the things I think is going to happen, and I just feel this is going to happen. Lynch used the phrase, we're going to be targeted in our approach to free agency. Barrows came out the other day, Todd, and said he doesn't expect the 49ers to be big players in free agency. I'll make the prediction right now. We're going to get to day 3 of free agency, and people that cover this team are going to lose their minds. And people who are fans of this team are going to lose their minds. And everybody's going to get thrown under the bus. Lynch has got to go. Shanahan doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Jed's a cheap-ass owner. Lynch is not the right guy. They don't know what they're doing. I mean, it's going to be an onslaught of the Seattle just signed this guy. What? They won the Super Bowl and they signed this guy, and it's day 3 of the free agency, and you haven't signed really anybody. But just remember this: this number came out today. This is the top 5 spending teams in the NFL over the last 5 years, and whether you want to hear it or not, I'm going to give it to you anyway. And this is in billions. The number 1 spending team in football, the Browns, $1.4 billion they've spent in the last 5 years. So I guess
to show for it.
I was going to say proof that money's not everything. All right. Number 2 on the list, the 49ers. The Niners have spent the second most amount of money over the last 5 years, $1.3 billion. And Jaguars are 3rd, Buffalo's 4, Dolphins are 5. What do those teams all have in common? None of them have won the Super Bowl in the last 5 years. So the top 5 spending teams haven't won the Super Bowl. And before you jump up and down and dial up 808 KMBR and Jed's a cheap ass, it feels good to say it. But why don't we back it up with some facts? And the facts aren't there. $1.3 billion is what he spent over the last 5 years. Only the Browns have spent more.
Well, I think it's a component of signing those big, either keeping guys like they've done with Trent and Bosa and Brock, and they've signed some
Kittle.
big contracts. And then the Browns signing Garrett and bringing in Deshaun Watson, like those are 2 enormous contracts. I think the teams that are probably lower on the list that have won a lot of games have been drafting well. And when you draft really well, you can get guys on the cheap and kind of build, and then maybe go get some big, not even big money, but the right free agents and bring them in on shorter term contracts where you're not huge. Free agent contracts don't work out all the time. Like you commit so much money to one person. The teams that have been really successful are the ones that keep their players in-house that they need to keep, and then let them go at the right time where they don't go off and have a ton of success afterward. And so the 49ers have targeted the people they want to keep in-house, which they've done a great job of. The piece that they've missed is those really productive first and second rounders. And so they've been in a position where they've had to go get free agents and spend some money. Also, the fact that they had so many guys hurt the last couple of years, they're signing 90 contracts a year, essentially. They're bringing in all these free agents, which doesn't help keep spending down. But I think if they can start hitting in the draft, because right now we've talked about it the last few weeks, Larry, there's some holes. They've drafted wide receiver, but it hasn't worked out. They really haven't drafted much on the O-line. And it's not just, can you bank on somebody to come in and start day one? You draft almost, like, if you're going to draft a guy in the 4th round, you need that guy to develop 2 to 3 years down the road. And the 49ers are in a position where they haven't hit on many of those draft picks. And so sometimes you have to go spend in free agency to bring in a starter because the guys that you have aren't cutting it or get hurt. And so I think it'll be a fascinating free agency period where I think you're right. I think the 49ers, I'm not expecting them to go make huge deals. I do think they need a wide receiver 1 and a plug and play offensive lineman, somebody they can get on the interior to go in and start, because we saw what the Rams and the Seahawks can do with a really tough pass rush when they only rush 4. And the 49ers, if they want to win, they got to win their division. And those are 2 really good teams. So they got to keep pace.
Yeah, I would say the veteran left guard is a likely, free agent target. That would be my guess. And maybe a receiver or a linebacker, because they may need multiples at that spot. And then, of course, the debate is, Lynch said yesterday in Indy, hey, look, man, if you want Mac Jones, you better come correct with something major because we love this guy. And, it doesn't take a genius to see that the Niners want to be bowled over. Now, the question is, are they? And I think they are going to get bowled over by an offer. I think if they just sit patient, it's going to come to them. And it's interesting. Rich Eisen should be be on the Niner payroll. He went on his show today and said that he believes that Mac Jones will be the next Sam Darnold. He said, Mac Jones, in my estimation, is the most likely candidate to be the next Sam Darnold of anybody else. He thinks that Mac has superstar potential. Now, I'm in this category as well, but I'm going to talk to you because you're one of the best quarterback guys I've ever met. You have a great feel for this. You played this position. You watch these guys. You analyze it. My opinion is that Sam Darnold was very good, but that Mac Jones is better. That Mac Jones processes better, quicker. He's more accurate with the football. He's not the big, strong body type that Darnold is. Darnold's a little bit better body. If you're just going to say, durability and that kind of thing, who's got a little bit more strength? Mac Jones looks more like me. He's got a gut, he's kind of pudgy. He looks like the kind of guy that, you have a couple beers with. You see him in the locker room and you're like, bro, that's a pro athlete right there. I feel like I'm watching a scene from like Kingpin, do you remember that scene where they showed all those guys in the bowling alley and their guts are
Oh yeah,
clearly protruding? And then Woody Harrelson goes, "I've never been in the presence of
so
so many
great
great
athletes.
athletes." It's just awesome. One of the greatest movie lines of all time. But I'm a believer in Mac Jones. And I really wasn't coming out of Bama, but I really am now. And I think he's better than Darnold. And I think Eisen's right. I think if there's one guy that screams, you can do Sam Darnold 2.0, it's Jones. And I think Jones is better. So I wouldn't give Jones away. I wouldn't even give him away for a good deal. I want a great deal, or I'd just keep him.
Yeah, I think you need to get, like we were talking about, a plug-and-play high-end starter at a position of need, whether that's wide receiver, offensive line, in return, because I think you're right. I think there are teams that are, at least last season, were a really good quarterback away, or not even a really good, were a pretty good quarterback away from making a longer playoff run. I look at the Texans. I think the Vikings are a team that makes sense. The complete meltdown of C.J. Stroud, I think, will be really interesting to see how the Texans approach that offseason. I think the Raiders are a team that would benefit. There's probably 4 or 5 others. The Jets are looking for a quarterback. I mean, they're always a mess. And it's not a guy that you need to groom and make, like, there's questions about him. This is a guy that Mac Jones, I think, not just has the physical tools, but we saw how the 49ers reacted to him being the starter. They loved him. And the way he handled being a backup, coming in and starting, leading the NFL in passing, and then going back to being a backup and supporting the starter and not complain. Like, he was a true pro from that sense. And I think was a great teammate. So that's the type of guy that if I'm an organization, I'm looking to build around. I do think you're right. He's not, there'd be some questions about maybe his durability or like getting to a little better shape. But when he was given the opportunity, he delivered for the 49ers, and it's a much different season if they don't have him on the roster. That was a great offseason pickup. And by the way, a great contract that they signed, because now they have him, and he's some collateral. He's probably the biggest piece of collateral the 49ers have right now in getting some pieces in return. So I do think I wouldn't be super excited about draft picks in return. I think they need some
people,
some proven starters that can come in and make a difference day one.
Yeah. Yeah. Lynch was asked about the draft, and he said, you guys got a bunch of different needs. What's the priority? And, I was really listening for this answer, because this is literally just how, their perspective. It's like, everybody's got a different perspective. I've heard all kinds of different things. They need a receiver. They need O-line, and then more O-line. You know what I mean? It's like, I've heard that. John said our defensive front, they brought in Mikel. They brought in Alfred Collins. They brought in C.J. West. They drafted Nick Martin. But they really want more defensive front. They got Bosa coming back. They got Warner coming back. They got some young guys that they picked, but they're looking, he said defensive front too. And then he kind of went on to say that Raheem Morris kind of has them looking at some different bodies. I think they're looking at more 5-man fronts, and maybe they're going to look at the Cassius Howells of the world, the A&M outside rusher who's like more like 245, 250. John mentioned we may, mess around with some different body types. They met formally today with the Ole Miss defensive tackle, Xavion Harris, who's 6'7", 320, gigantic defensive tackle. What do you see with? That's what Lynch said, and I'll take him at his word. He doesn't lie a lot. If he says our priority is the defensive front 7, I expect their priority is the defensive front 7. You can take that to the bank. What do you think of that, though?
I think you can't have enough really good pass rushers. I think if they stay healthy, I'd love to see what the current players can do. I like the trajectory of Alfred Collins and C.J. West as that season went along. We saw them get more and more involved. I thought we saw improvement from Michael Williams before he went down. Bosa is a difference maker, a game changer when he's healthy. There's some other pieces that when you are dead last in the NFL in sacks by a wide margin,
right,
that has to be a priority. And we see the teams that not just have teams that have won the Super Bowl over the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years, even when the Chiefs were rolling and they had, Mahomes and offense was good. They had a really good defensive front four. And when a team can put pressure on the quarterback, we saw with the Eagles, we've seen it this year with the Seahawks. Those teams are tough to match up with. And so I think that's certainly a key component of a really successful, not just defense, but team. So I don't disagree. I wouldn't put it in the top 2 or 3. I think keeping the guys that the 49ers have healthy is a priority. And then if you can add, a veteran or somebody that has some speed coming off the edge, great. But I like Mykel Williams and Bosa and Collins and CJ West. And if they can find another, interior guy to let the guys on the outside get to the quarterback, I think they're not super deep. So I don't disagree with them, but I wouldn't put that in the top 2 or 3 priorities for the offseason right now for the 49ers. I think linebacker, yes. So maybe that's what he's referring to, is maybe the front 7.
Yeah. They definitely need linebackers. They need like 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah. And, is Nick Martin a guy that, I know you love him, but like, is he a guy that you can get in a 3-point stance and come off the edge in third down situation? He's so fast.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the direction they can go with him. And I'd love to see him in the open field as well. But figuring out a way to get to the quarterback has to be, top of the pyramid in off-season improvements for this 49er defense.
It's funny. It reminds me of that kid, Jamin Davis, who was a stack backer, and then he just couldn't quite get it going. And then I think the Commanders or somebody else tried him off the edge, and he actually had some success because he's that athletic. I mean, if you're uber athletic like Nick Martin, maybe he can do other things. I mean, we'll find out. If they can't play linebacker, I mean, at worst, the guy should be just an absolute killer special team player for you at the very, very worst. There was talk that the Niners met with the Oregon linebacker Betcher. I don't know how much you watched of the Ducks this year. Did you see Betcher at all? The big.
I have not gotten it deep into my draft prep yet.
Yeah, so this guy's an Oregon guy. We'll see. I mean, he definitely is a fan of Lynch. So he said that he really admired Lynch. When you're a quarterback and you're sitting around going, okay, where do I want to go at the end? Like if you're the Niners, to me, the question is if they move Mac Jones, and I think they have to move Mac Jones for all the reasons we talked about. They have too many needs. He's too valuable. There's too many needy teams. The return should be too great. And you can't have a super valuable item that you never really use. I mean, you're hoping he never plays. But obviously the reality is like backup quarterbacks do. I'm looking at this situation where the Niners are at, and I'm thinking, okay, so if you move Mac, then what, right? Who's your backup? What do you think? I mean, do you think it's Rourke? Do you think it's Martinez? I kind of like the idea of Kirk Cousins. I think that would be a really nice addition. But then I've also kind of fallen in love with this kid Gronowski from Iowa, who did not have a very good college career as far as at Iowa, but guy won 2 national championships at the FCS level for South Dakota State. He's athletic, and he's a mechanical engineering major. He's got 10.25-inch hands. There's a lot to like about Gronowski. I don't know if you've watched him at all, but would you rather go with the cheap guy in the draft and Rourke and Martinez behind Brock, or would you rather spend a little bit of money and maybe have a more proven thing like a Kirk Cousins?
I think if you're in the NFL, you should draft a quarterback every year. You really should. And maybe he turns out to be a guy like Brock Purdy, right? And develop him on your bench for a couple years and see if he turns in anything. There's very little downside. The majority of 7th round picks don't make it. I would draft a guy every single year, 5th, 6th, 7th round, just because quarterbacks are so valuable. And if you we saw it with Davis Mills in Houston this year and Tanner McKee. And there's guys that get drafted late and develop into really good NFL quarterbacks. And we've seen it with the 49ers over the last few years. There's having guys that you can trust to come into the game and win is incredibly valuable. I haven't seen enough of Rourke. I'm not a huge Martinez fan just from what I have seen. They seem like great guys. The locker room seems to like them, and I really trust Kyle Shanahan. So if he likes them enough to have them on the roster, they've got to have something there. I do think going into the season, you need somebody who's done it before. I think it's too valuable a position to take a chance on somebody that hasn't suited up and won some games. Kirk Cousins, you can do certainly a lot worse than. And I think he would, like we saw last year, if Brock were to miss a couple games, I think Kirk has definitely taken a huge step backwards after that Achilles injury. Maybe he's better now. He wasn't great last year when he filled in Atlanta, but maybe this is a situation where he's healthier. He clearly has had success with Shanahan in the past. That wouldn't be bad. I mean, I've thrown this name out there the last couple of weeks. Somebody like a Kyler Murray, and here's why I say that. If I'm Kyler Murray's agent, I'm recommending he take a year off, go develop, and become the next Mac Jones or Sam Darnold. Like, you've had a couple rough seasons,
or
things
better.
did not work out in Arizona. Go learn the position, become a starting quarterback again, and don't go to a bad team right now where you're going to get beat up again. Be a guy like Geno Smith has had a great career. He was terrible in New York, and he revived his career in Seattle because he was around good players and good coaching. Kyler Murray has that ability, but he needs to be in a stable situation where he's going to learn. And I think the 49ers have created this now backup quarterback system where rinse and repeat. Teach these guys, if it's the right fit, teach these guys how to play the position, send them off, and get something in return, hopefully. That would be, I think, an interesting scenario. I don't know how likely that is because Kyler's probably going to want too much money. But if he's made a ton of money, a move like that could extend his career another 10 years if he does it the right way.
You'd be a great college counselor. I mean, seriously. No, you would. Because, I mean, look, you're absolutely spot on. You're totally, absolutely down the middle, right on. This guy's made, Kyler Murray, we're now talking about, has made $170 million in his career. His family's taken care of. He's now should grab his career. And, it's the old saying, we come into this world and we're given a family and then we get to create a family, right? You can't control what family you're given, but you can control what family you create. He was given the Arizona Cardinals. That's not a great family. And now there's been and he's talented as hell. And you're right. I mean, he needs a reset. And Shanahan and being with Purdy and Shanahan would absolutely reset him at a much even higher level than Darnold or Jones, because he's got so much athleticism and he would thrive. He would absolutely flourish. You're right. You're totally right. He ought to take 1 year, come here for peanuts and just make an absolute king's ransom coming out of here. You're absolutely spot on. I'm watching the Florida kicker, Trey Smack, on Twitter make a 60-yard field goal with absolute ease. Why is it that kickers in 2026 are like millions of times better than every one of these guys is like makes Morton Anderson look like just like some high school hairy guy? I mean, all the kickers of today are better. It seems like they make a higher clip. Is it the ball? Is it the technology? Is it the coaching?
I think it's the body type of kickers.
Is it?
Like I didn't play that long ago, 30 years ago, 25 years ago.
They were
kickers
small.
Were like I played with Eddie Murray, who was like 44 years old. When I was a rookie, we had Eddie Murray. We picked him up like last month of the season. He had a kid older than me. Like that's he was old and I was young. But they were like smaller guys that could kind of just make everything inside 40 yards. Now these guys are huge. Like they're big, athletic,
6'3", 6'4",
yeah, 200 pounds,
pendulum,
can run. And so I think body type, they can just generate more power. There's a ton of guys that can make kicks. There's not a ton that can make all the kicks when it counts. And I think that's what separates. Yeah. Like we saw it with Moody. Man, that guy had a powerful leg, but he just couldn't do it in crunch time. And then a guy like Pinheiro, who's not as physically imposing or big, guy made everything. I think the one kick he missed, like hit the crossbar from 62 or something like that. So, I think the body type has the biggest. Kickers have evolved more so than I think any other position over the last 30 years.
Last one before we let you go. The combine. I've talked to you about so many different things. Did you go to the combine? What was your?
I did.
What was your what's that experience like? You're with all the other quarterbacks. You can't it's not like public speaking where you can wait for somebody to crash and burn and be like, I'll go next. It's like you got a number, you're behind whoever you're behind. Who was the big quarterback stud the year you came out throwing the ball? Was there anybody? And what's that like when all these alpha type personalities, quarterbacks are the leaders, and you get all these guys together? There's money on the table, but you got to kind of play it cool, and the cameras are rolling. What's that whole experience like?
Well, it was pretty brutal for me because guys that come out from the West Coast, it's super early in the morning when you got to get up. The airline lost my luggage.
Oh,
so I had to I was scrambling to find some workout stuff. Is not ideal. And then they have you work. It is kind of bizarre. I mean, my year, Tom Brady, obviously, but the guys that were projected to go high is Chris Redman,
Louisville,
Baltimore, at Louisville. Chad Pennington was the only first round quarterback. A guy named Giovanni Carmazzi.
Yes. Walsh. I mean, I don't want to. You don't want to say bad things about Walsh. Walsh is no longer with us, but Walsh is like, there's no doubt this is the best athlete among the quarterbacks in this draft.
He was a miss.
All right.
Doug Johnson out of Florida threw it really hard. I remember they do a radar gun when you're throwing it. I remember Doug Johnson was the best at that. It was bizarre. I think the way everybody evaluates you, and then you get. I mean, it was almost silly. You go out and throw 25 passes. Like you're going to make that's a pretty small sample size when I've got 25 hours of college game tape you can watch.
Did you get any ridiculous questions? I mean, from what I've heard, and I know some guys who scout right now, and I asked a buddy of mine, I go, let's go through it. Can we talk about this? And we talked over the weekend for about an hour about the combine and different things. And he said, one of the things that the Stanford guys are getting a lot recently, it's like, how much do you love football, and what did you major in? What are your other business interests? Like, they want to know, like, if I draft Sam Hauser, is Sam Hauser going to play 2 years of football and then start some incredible startup in the peninsula and make more money than God and Bolt? I think there's, they don't like guys with eclectic interests. They don't want to hear that you love sculpting and painting and that you're into architecture and that you go to church. They don't want you to be a bad guy, but they don't want well-rounded. They want somebody who lives, breathes, eats, dies football.
Yeah, that was me. I mean, I didn't have a ton of fallback. Once it became clear, once I started my junior year, it's like, this is something I really want to do. And again, I mentioned I was young. I was 21 years old when I got drafted. So I was young. I didn't redshirt at Stanford and had a younger birthday. So, I think that was, but I had started a lot of games. I don't remember any crazy questions. I mean, I was pretty boring too. Like, hey, this is what I've done. I'm a Stanford guy, great family. Like I worked my tail off. Like I was a 2-star recruit and won the first, Pac-10 championship for Stanford in 30 years. Like I had a good success story, but you come in humble and, hey, coach, I'm here to work. I'm here to make you better. You tell me what to do and I'll do it. And I'll outwork my competition. That was kind of my approach that I took in college and in the NFL. And then you just hope for the best. Like the Redskins, now the Commanders, were the only team that came and worked me out. And I had a good workout. And I was talking to the Patriots. Like there is the story that the Patriots were kind of in a coin flip between me and Brady. I still think they made the wrong choice. I would have stayed there and won another championship for him instead of going to Tampa
You
Bay.
would have become Brady and he would have become you. I'd be sitting next to Brady and you'd be a Hall of Famer with 7 rings.
I'm pretty happy with my
with my
radio career and my family, but no, it is like it's amazing the way things work out, and how we've talked about this too, like how much of the environment and the coaching staff and the players and the fit and it impacts a quarterback's career as much as talent and ability. Now Brady brought a lot of greatness to the table from a mental standpoint and the approach, and God, he went into a great opportunity where there's a veteran who gets hurt, and he's got the best defense and a great run game and a great coach and a great organization like that. He got fortunate with that, but he took care of the rest. Like he didn't get luck is when preparation meets opportunity, right? And so from that standpoint, he got lucky, but he was prepared and made the most of it.
He had great determination. He'd come from a great family, and he was going to work at it. And people didn't see that there was a better athlete under there. That if you put him in a pro environment with a pro diet and the whole deal. I mean, I think Tom Brady looks like a better athlete right now than he looks better right now than he did in his combine picture. I mean, how many people could say that?
Not me.
One last thought. Lynch had a great thought today, and he was asked, what's your approach with the interviews? And he said, you know what? We don't just want to bring in the guys who have problems. We want to bring in the guys that have the reputation of great leadership and, the kind of guys that you really want, because we want our room to feel that, like feel what that guy feels like when you put him in your room. I thought that was a great observation, because there's all kinds of different approaches. Hey, we want fact finding. We're going to find out why this guy's got a DUI. We're going to find out why he's been on 4 teams, why he transferred 19 times, why, whatever. But you know what? Having the guys who are considered awesome workers, who are great character guys, would be a good feeling to be like, hey, look, if we draft this guy, we bring him into our room, this is what we're getting. And to have a little bit of a taste of that throughout the process, I think really smart. I think it's smart.
Yeah, I think it's gotten a little synthesized where these guys have trainers and coaches, not just coaches for work. They are coached how to take the Wonderlic and how to, I don't even know if that's given out anymore, but like guys were given the test, like to basically prepare. This is what you say when you're asked this question. So it's gotten a little, not fake, but I do think there's a lot to be said for getting to know the person. Like I go back to my combine, Plaxico Burress was completely disinterested in the entire process. Like didn't want, like was sitting and just.
We call that situational foreshadowing.
Yeah, right. Like this was an opportunity for him to prove that he could be. He still was a first-round pick. Things did not work out great. He had a decent career, but getting to know that guy during that, if you can get to know the person and the work ethic and what drives that person, and what am I going to get when I hand this kid $3 or $4 million bucks? Am I going to get the person that we want and we need to make our organization better? By the way, these kids are young. Do they have the foresight and maturity to learn from mistakes they're going to make? Because everybody does. But